Hello, I'm Joy, and today I'm going to talk about what counts as a placement in a stellium. This is a great question because it's actually one of the more controversial topics in astrology, and it came up in a discussion today, so I figured I'd just do a quick little recording on it. So basically, as far as I know, there is no general consensus on this, but what I'm going to do is tell you some of the different arguments that I've heard and explore the reasoning behind some of them. And then I'll tell you what I do, what I count. So basically, a stellium is a bunch of planets that are either all conjunct by degree in the same house or in the same sign, depending on who you ask. Now, some people will say that it can be a bunch of placements in the same house or the same sign because that adds a lot of that particular house's or sign's energy to a chart. So, as far as I understand, that's the reasoning for counting that. Personally, I count it by degrees. So it depends not what sign they're in, not what house they're in, but how close they are to each other. So if we've got a number of planets that are all, conjunct each other, they can be spread out over multiple signs, multiple houses. I will count it just based on the degrees. Another area where people debate what a stellium actually is how many placements it takes to make up a stellium. So a lot of people will say 3 or more planets. A lot of people will say 4 or more, and or placements, I should say. I will get to that point next. But basically, I don't have a strong stance on how many it takes because the way I see it, a stellium is basically just a conjunction that has a lot of stuff in it, right? So the more placements are in it, the more stellium it is. I'm not going to split hairs about whether this is technically a stellium or not. If there's a lot of things in one little area of the chart, there's going to be a lot of focus there, and there's more focus there the more placements there are there. So usually, just for the sake of avoiding arguing with anybody, if it's 3, I will say the conjunction of, and then I will say those planets. If it's 4, then I will call it a stellium. But if somebody's talking to me and there's 3 placements and they call it a stellium, I don't argue with them. I don't correct them. I'm happy to use the term with them in that conversation because to me, it just really doesn't matter that much. A stellium doesn't take on some super special quality because it's magically now officially in a stellium. Conjunctions themselves, even if it's 2 placements, conjunctions are very powerful. And a stellium to me, like I said, is just basically a conjunction with more stuff in it. So official cutoffs for how many things can be in it, whatever. It's a big conjunction, okay? So that's just my perspective. Like I said, this is controversial. You're going to find different astrologers have different approaches to this, and I'm not telling anybody else that they're right or wrong. I'm just sharing how I approach the subject. So, okay, the next thing is whether we count anything besides planets. So planets in astrology, it's basically Sun, Moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So these are our planets in astrology. Technically, the sun and moon are not planets. Technically, Pluto is not a planet. But for the sake of discussion in astrology, that's what we call them. So anyways, there are a lot of astrologers that will only count planets in stelliums. And if it's something like the ascendant, the midheaven, Lilith, heart of fortune, the nodes, the north node or the south node, any of the angles, so the IC, the midheaven, the descendant. There are a lot of astrologers that won't count those. And okay, so for my approach to this, I would say that if it's an actual physical body, particularly a planet or Chiron, I do think Chiron can be pretty impactful. If it's an actual physical body, you're going to feel it differently than you're going to feel it if we're talking about angles. Like angles are sort of more like personas or like modes of behavior. I don't think we feel them the way we feel the type of drive we experience when there's an actual like planet in a certain point in a chart. They're important. They do matter. And I am going to hesitantly say I will count them in a stellium. However, it's not going to have the same impact that a stellium that's made up of like all planets and Chiron would have. So it also kind of depends on the chart a little bit too. Like there are different factors that can come into play that can sort of change this a little bit. And I think it depends on how sensitive the person is too. But anyways, so the next point is whether personal planets should or should not be counted in stelliums. So some astrologers say that you should not count the sun, Venus, or Mercury in stelliums because they move so quickly, and more so because they're a lot more likely to be conjunct each other in a chart because, Mercury is usually like one sign from the sun. Venus is usually like two signs from the sun. So statistically speaking, you're going to see conjunctions with the sun and Mercury and or Venus more often than you're going to see other types of conjunctions in charts. So that's a reason that some people give for not counting them in stelliums. And to me, that just doesn't make sense at all because the more personal a planet is, the more unique it is to you and not just like everybody that was born around the same like year that you were, the more it's going to impact you, So I can understand saying that it's less likely to occur if you don't count it, but like are we trying to make stelliums like super special and rare? Is that what the deal is? Like people are like, oh no, that's not a stellium, you're not special like I am because I have a stellium that doesn't include the sun and Mercury and Venus and yours do, so like you're not special and I am. That's what it sounds like to me, kind of. And I feel a little bit like torn about just like straight up saying this in a video because it sounds critical, but like what other reason could a person have for not wanting to count something as a stellium just because it's more common, right? Like why does it need to be some rare thing? It's going to impact that person the same way, if not even more strongly, even if it is more common. So that's my perspective. If anything, I would say that stelliums that have outer planets, as like people born in 1989, for example, generally have Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn all conjunct in Capricorn. This is like the 1989 stellium or, conjunction. So like, if anything, like, that's a kind of a social stellium or conjunction. So basically it's like to me, it just doesn't make sense to say that personal planets or like certain personal planets shouldn't count as part of stelliums. Um, to me, like, it's all about the impact that it has on that person. And personal planets are going to have the most impact, generally speaking. So that's my perspective about that. And then let's see here. Was there anything else about? Nope. I think that's it. Those are like the main controversial pieces when it comes to stelliums. So feel free to leave a comment saying what you consider to be a stellium. And if you want me to take a look at your chart, I am available for one-to-one consultations and readings. You can go to joythemodernmystic.com/services to book that. Thank you.